Hello and welcome to the NDTV YouTube channel. I'm Vishnu and I'll give you a quick look at some of the big stories we are tracking. Well, the big headline today is the decision of the Supreme Court in overturning what has been decades and decades of a practice of preventing women officers from serving in particular roles, command roles in the force. The Indian Army, remember, is the second largest army in the world, and in today's landmark decision, the Supreme Court has ruled that women can work in command roles. Now, what exactly are command roles and what exactly is it that the Supreme Court has been looking at? So let me just tell you what a couple of the points are. Firstly, in terms of the ruling itself, the Supreme Court has said that women officers can receive command and criteria appointments. All serving short service commission women officers will get permanent commission as an option if they choose. Discrimination of not allowing women in criteria and command appointments struck down. Don't worry, I'll explain what this all means. I just want to go through what the court is saying first. The engagement of women officers in the army is an evolutionary process. Physiological features of women have no links to their rights. The mindset must change. The center's submission perpetuates stereotypes. I'll tell you also about the center's mindset thus far. The center's submission is disturbing. Women officers are not an adjunct to male counterparts. To cast an aspersion on gender is an affront to their dignity, and to cast an aspersion on gender is an affront to the country as well. Now, essentially, while there have been officers in the Indian Army for quite a few years now, quite some time now, they have been short service commission officers. A few years back, they were granted permanent commission in the Indian Army, but they were not allowed permanent commission in the Indian Army in the combat arms. So no women in infantry, artillery, or in the armored corps. Now that remains. So that's important to explain that women will not be allowed in combat positions so far. So then the question is, what has happened? Well, there are several other key areas of the army that women now can work in a permanent capacity and command men. For example, ordnance, signals, engineering. The engineer-in-chief of the Indian Army could one day become a woman. Military intelligence, and a few other areas which used to already exist. But what do we mean by command? Now, substantive command in the Indian Army begins from the rank of colonel. Once you become a colonel, you command a battalion. Depending on which part of the army you're in, that would be several hundred men. It can go up to 850 men in some parts of the army, a lower number of men in another part of the army. But it's not just the number of people you command that is important, it's the quality of the work that you get. So the quality of the work when you are a colonel is that you're given independent charge. You are fully accountable, you take decisions, and therefore it is a substantive command, right? The onus and the buck lies with you as a colonel. Now, women were being denied this so far. They were going up the pyramid of seniority up to the rank of about colonel or so in certain areas, but they were not really being given command positions. That's changed now. Women can have command positions in the areas which I have identified. Now, if you have taken a command, right, and if you've done well and the system isn't discriminatory towards you, then you can rise to become a brigadier. So from a battalion, you would be commanding a brigade. A brigade is larger. Your responsibilities are different. You could rise to become a major general. You could rise to become a lieutenant general. Though, while theoretically a woman could become the chief of army staff at one day, in the present scenario, that seems quite unlikely. Why? Simply because the top posts in the army do require some sort of command experience in combat areas. Not some, but fairly extensive, if not all. You need to have served on the line of control. You need to, if a war was there, have gone to a war. You need to have had extensive experience, say, in the Northeast, on the China front, counter-insurgency. So all of that adds up to the very topmost posts. So the question is then, will there be a scenario when women can actually can we have a woman chief of army staff? Not now, but perhaps in the future once women are accepted into combat roles. Now that's a separate battle that has not taken place before. So what has the Supreme Court said about some of the reasons which have been given by the army? Well, they have said that the reasons given by the army to deny women in the past cast aspersions on gender is an affront to the dignity of women and to the country. The point being mentioned by the army, which has been completely rejected, and by the army I mean the army and the government, is that our soldiers come from a village background by and large. They will not be okay about accepting a woman in command. Secondly, there are physiological differences between men and women. Thirdly, there are issues of hygiene and high altitude posts where women would be uncomfortable. Fourthly, what if there is a woman who's taken as a prisoner of war? There could be scenarios where rape is used as an instrument of torture. Are we as a country willing to accept all of this? But the Supreme Court said you cannot discriminate on the basis of gender. And that all of these grounds are no grounds to deny women a command appointment. So that has now been allowed. But the larger question of women in combat, that's not been answered thus far, but it needs to be mentioned that the case being heard right now didn't have to do with that. So it would be fair to say that today's victory in the Supreme Court is a stepping stone towards that eventual goal. When that will come, we don't know right now. But the Supreme Court has told the army, look, you've got 3 months to begin the process of implementing this. So there will be profound changes in the army, and I think one of the huge benefits right off the top is that there is a shortage of officers in the army. Now, if you've got women who can rise to substantive positions, command positions, then that helps that process as well of bringing down the shortage of trained personnel that you have in your officer ranks. There are other countless benefits as well. So I would say that this is not just an important move for gender equality in the army, it's an incredible victory for gender justice in India.